one more person give her feedback, a little extra special response for her nice effort.
You spoke very confidently, and even though it's not your first language, so it's really good. And I think we could be careful with using vocabulary, like acharya and protocol, and maybe the government official will not be aware of what it means. But besides that, I think...
Did everybody hear that? That was really important feedback. We make that mistake often. Be careful of jargon. Okay, we have certain words that we use that we understand, but not everybody else does.
And I think you kept it focused, even with so many distractions and noise. So, thank you very much.
I'll also re-emphasize that last point. She was also kind enough to go ahead, even though everybody wasn't here, and it wasn't just one person coming in. I really appreciate the way we talked ahead of time to have you dance in front of her and completely distract her. She was like a rock.
Yeah.
She was like a rock. She wasn't disturbed. I wouldn't have been as undisturbed as you were. So that was very, very well done. Just want to best emphasize that. And we should all know that when you do give a speech or talk sometimes, you don't have control of the environment. Generally, you want to try to avoid things like having people walk in. Like in other circumstances, you probably would have said to me, is it a good idea for me to start now? Nobody's here. But I said, go ahead. So she went ahead and did that. But there may be things going on around you that you don't have control over, but you have to just ignore those. And like you did effortlessly, you didn't even like blink at all the people coming in. You just kept making eye contact with whoever was here, and that was really well done. So thanks for that. Good job. Okay, so we're going to, in a few minutes, talk about media. But Raj had specifically asked if I could find a little time to talk some examples, case studies, examples a little bit of people who are inspired by the Vaishnava or the Bhakti tradition and who are making a difference in their various areas of function in the world. So I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes, and then we'll get on to our next session, which is looking at media relations. So there's lots of examples out there, and we'll open up to other people to share. Open up to maybe Yoga Maya, particularly might want to ask you to share some of the things that you're doing. But one of the things that came up, I was hearing when we were doing the listening session, at least a couple of the groups were talking about, I've got this fantastic idea, and I don't have the resources to make it happen. And that's often a challenge. At this point, it's funny because, say in America, a large percentage of our congregation are of Indian American origin, South Asian Indian origin, and that happens to be the wealthiest minority in the whole country. America is a fairly affluent country, but the Indian population is richer than the Jewish population and richer than any other population. So there are, we have a lot of support from that community. At the same time, we're a new organization, so we don't have like huge funds out there. There's not like, let's say you come up with a great idea, you don't have your choice of 25 different funding agencies created by the Vaishnava community. Not that I know of. So that might be one of the things that some of you in the room want to do, make a few $1 million and start a fund, but it's not there for now. If you know of one, don't tell anybody, but talk to me after the session. Okay? But as far as I know, there's not a whole lot of them out there. So, in one sense, that means that what we're all doing is even more exciting because we're pioneers. Like Prabhupada didn't have, what was Prabhupada's resources? He had his, of course, the Parampara, his faith in Krishna, the holy name, and 3 trunks of books. That's it. 40 rupees, which he couldn't change into money. He couldn't change it into dollars. In that time, nobody changed rupees for dollars. So he basically, they were just took up space in his pocket. pretty much. So, but despite that, we have, and we can see the example of property achieved so much with so little resources. So, just to kind of look at a few people came to my mind as far as people that have phenomenal things, and I'll just mention 3 examples. The first one is, you may know, some of you from Europe may know Mahaprabhu Prabhu. Anybody know Mahaprabhu Prabhu? Okay, just a couple, a few. So here's an interesting example of a person. We'll look at very different 3 stories here. Mahaprabhu is the son of a man who was a very famous artist. His name is Martin Gorbich. His father's name is Jose Gorbich, who, it's a long, complicated story, but he migrated to Uruguay, which is a country this big in South America. If he'd gone to another country, it might have made a bigger difference, but he's a very, within that genre, highly respected, somewhat famous contemporary artist, passed away maybe in the 1970s. So Mahaprabhu is a devotee of Krishna, and he's got a famous father who painted all these paintings, none of which would fit into any Bhaktivedanta Book Trust publication. It's a very different genre.
I just moved a bit here for a second.
Okay, thank you. But he's got all these paintings, and so what he has done, among many things, is he's a devotee, he's a husband, he's a father, he's a trustee in the Bhaktivedanta College, he's been one of the board members of the Radhadesh Temple for years, but he sold his father's paintings, he manages the whole thing, he's got a museum in Uruguay, he oftentimes puts things, he just recently had a show of his father's work in Washington, D.C. at the embassy. And of course he's making all these kind of amazing contacts. And then he takes the money from that and he spends it, a lot of it, to buy Vaishnava art. So he travels all around India and he gets Vaishnava art and different types of devotional art. Not all of it Vaishnava, but a lot of it Vaishnava. And he supports and promotes young artists. And has anybody been to either Radhadesh or Villa Vrindavan in Italy recently? There's some. Can you describe the museum in Villa Vrindavan? You've been to Villa Vrindavan? Radhadesh, okay. Who's been to Villa Vrindavan? That one's a little more remote. Can you describe what you see there when you go to the museum?
They got the gallery of the Mahabharata and Ramayana.
Everybody here? Is it here?
It's a gallery, art gallery of the Mahabharata and Ramayana.
And all the paintings are this big, right?
Huge paintings, like 4 or 5
Huge.
meters.
Huge. Like that wall. How many paintings, maybe?
100, 200.
Yeah. I was just say 40 to 50, but there's a lot. And it's in Florence, which is arguably, the center of Western art, definitely one of the most important centers. And it's at the temple, and they have this big, huge, old home of some wealthy aristocrat a few centuries ago. And this whole wing is just this beautiful art display. And you go to Radhadesh, and they do many explain what you've seen there.
Yeah, they have a whole museum and they actually display different artworks of different Vaishnavas at different times. They, rotate them on a regular basis because not all the works fit into the museum.
Yeah, he's got like whole storage places filled with the extra work. So sometimes it's oil painting, sometimes it's print, sometimes it's pencil, sometimes all kinds of different things, different artists. And and now he's talking with the Washington D.C. to maybe put a museum in Washington D.C. So he has a vision based on what he's learned from Prabhupada and from our tradition. Art is a really important part of our traditions. And early Prabhupada wanted his artists to paint. And, attracted some very qualified people. And especially in that era when we were first publishing books in large quantity. I remember showing books to people in the 1970s. Nobody put full color plates, as they are called, inside books. I mean, today, when you buy a book, there's no pictures in there. Very rare. Sometimes photographs, nothing in color. Very rare to have, even today. So Prabhupada is very cutting edge about the need for artwork. And of course he started the Fate, right, first something theistic exhibition and all that. So Mahaprabhu was kind of carrying that mood out. He's got some resources from the money from his father, and he's got an in on meeting people with the art world. He's got appreciation and taste for it, and he's putting that all together among everything else he does to create these beautiful museums of devotional art around the world. So there's one example, okay? Now another person comes to mind, and just as an example, some of you may know Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, who's a businessman, older guy like my age, mid-60s, maybe approaching 70 now, was a temple president for many years in Los Angeles, and then he left his direct temple service, and he went out and started a couple businesses. And I don't know the whole story of what business led to what, but now he has a very successful business, a franchise business, and he's built it up to the point that he doesn't have to spend that much time with his business. So he does things like he was with Kunteya Prabhu, like the brainstorm or the idea source behind this whole International Leadership Sangha, where 1,000 leaders of ISKCON from various countries come to Mayapur for meetings. That's where he puts his energy now. I was just talking about Gopal Bhatta Kunteya. Kunteya is on the kind of a co-partner on a lot of the things that they do. And also very active what's called the Organizational Development Committee within ISKCON, which is looking at how to expand the structure, reorganizes the structure, what kind of training should be there for temple presidents, for GBCs, for regional supervisors, and looking at all kinds of complicated issues there. As I think most of us know, well, we know this part, ISKCON is a very highly sophisticated culturally and musically and artistically and literature and history and all that stuff. And organizationally, we're not so good. We're not big on organization. There's other religious communities out there that are like really well organized, and you talk about their philosophy, it's like, where's their philosophy? But wow, are they organized, right? We don't have to mention any names. So we need more work on this. So here's an example of a person who has some business experience, successful, and puts a lot of their time and a lot of their money into bringing the expertise that they learn into the world into ISKCON to try to help make the organization stronger, especially planning for the future, because, you know, in a few years there's not going to be so many Prabhupada disciples here. It's going to be even more important for the next generation to carry things along. A third example, we talked about somebody who has business acumen, made money and expertise, put it into Krishna service. We talked about somebody who has this kind of amazing birth with a famous father who took that opportunity, used it into an opportunity to uplift the art world. A third example, raise your hand if you know Shanika Rishi Prabhu from Oxford, from Ireland. Okay, a few people. Okay. So Shanika Rishi joined the ISKCON Society as a young man, I don't know, in Ireland at some point in time, and had various services. But his main role for many years was the communications director for Europe. And at one point, he met the man who is the, what's the word? The regent seat, something like that, of religion at Oxford University, named Professor Keith Ward. He's, I think, retired now. He's like the Queen's appointment. Like many universities, there's a seat in honor of some person. He was the one who had the seat in honor of the Queen of England. Big, 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 big person. So he met him at one event, and he expressed to him that he was talking about Prabhupada's books, and he expressed to him that I would love to have an opportunity to read those. So Shanika somehow sent him a set of books. He got him a whole set of Bhagavatams. I don't know if he sent him the CC, but met him like a few months ago and asked him, did you get a chance to look at the books? This is how I remember Shanika telling the story. Shanika and Professor Keith Ward said, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed reading them. At which point Shanika realized this man is really serious in terms of understanding and appreciating Vaishnava culture. So they started talking about the fact there's not a lot of study going on at Oxford these days about the ancient traditions of India. And did some research to find out that there was a center for Hindu or Indian or something studies at Oxford University for, I think, over a century, which by some strange coincidence happened to close down when England lost India as a colony. It's like we don't need to study these people anymore because we don't have to dominate them anymore. They're not a colony, so they shut it down. So Shonaka in his conversations with Keith Ward realized there's no center for studying Hindu culture, Vedic culture, etc. So with no money, no institutional support, but a lot of guts and a vision, he began to put together what is today called the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, which is now an affiliated, independent but affiliated organization with Oxford University. They have some of the biggest scholars in the whole world have come there to be resident professors. They have published a series of books through a journal, through something called Routledge Publishing House, which is a super respected academic publishing house. And they now are training scholars, many of whom are professors now in different universities around the world. For example, Dr. Ravi Gupta, Radhika Raman Prabhu, who was a professor at a state university. He actually is a department chair now, I think, at a state university in America. And many other devotees in different parts of the world that have gone through that Oxford training and now are have become experts in teaching Vaishnavism, broader Hindu traditions, religious studies, and they're becoming the leading voices. Shonaka Rishi, he's also, I see pictures all the time. They go to all these events to meet the Queen, meet the Prince, to meet everybody and all that stuff. Shonaka Rishi never graduated from college. And he's actually dyslexic. You know what dyslexic means? It means somehow, some kind of dysfunction. You can't read from the side. You're like English, I don't know about Russian. You read left to right. Right? Hebrew is right to left, right? But he can't read. It's a big endeavor for him to read because some of his eyes or his brain, kind of the wires crossed. And he's running the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies and bringing the biggest scholars in the world of Indic studies to that place to work and study and teach within that institution. So how did he do that? He's got vision, he's got a lot of Krishna consciousness, he's a brilliant man, and he's got a lot of guts. A lot of guts. So I think similar to what Maharaj is kind of like helping us all bring out here, which is a sense of we may have some money in our background, we may have some kind of resources like a father who's a famous artist or something else, but we may start with nothing. But if we have a vision, if we have inspiration, then actually Krishna can empower us to do some pretty amazing things. And I know I go to this event called the American Academy of Religion. 5,000-6,000 religion scholars come every year. And in terms of South Asian studies, Hindu studies, Vaishnava studies, everybody knows about the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. And everybody would love to go there and teach. It's like a very prestigious thing now. You know, professors from Harvard University go there to teach for a year. It's an important thing for them. So this is an example of some of the kind of things. Yogamai, could you share some of the things? I haven't heard much, but you're doing some kind of cutting edge things. Or you're working with people doing cutting edge things in Israel. Can you fill in some thoughts you might have and a couple other kind of case study things?
Well, certain things you shared with us, and especially working with local governments.
The ideas.
Huh?
The ideas.
Not just ideas, but things you already do.
I don't know if it's cutting edge stuff, it's just running through things like different clubs and festivals and seminars. So this kind of things which are running, bringing more people. So
So are you working with some of those governments now?
One of the projects, which is basically the